Our National Treasures by Kate Tworp. Contents: Introduction, Independence Hall, Statue of Liberty, White House, Plymouth Rock, Golden Gate Bridge, Virginia City, Mount Rushmore, Levi Coffin House, Kennedy Space Center, Poverty Point, Alamo, Cliff Palace, Hoover Dam. Glossary. Introduction. Most people have their own treasures, a favorite hat, a best blanket, or maybe a pet. These treasures belong to just one person. National treasures belong to us all. They are the places or things that tell us something important about our country's past or our hopes and dreams for the future. America's national treasures can be found in every part of the country. This map shows where some of them are located. We share in America's national treasures. Everyone can be proud of them. Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, California. Hoover Dam, Black Canyon, Nevada. Virginia City, Montana. Mount Rushmore, Black Hills National Forest, South Dakota. Cliff Palace, Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado. Alamo, San Antonio, Texas. Poverty Point, Louisiana. Levi Coffin House, Fountain City, Indiana. Statue of Liberty, New York Harbor. Plymouth Rock, Plymouth, Massachusetts. Independence Hall, Philadelphia. White House, Washington, D.C. Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Independence Hall, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Independence Hall is a national treasure because important decisions were made there. On July 4th, 1776, a group of leaders chosen by the people gathered at Independence Hall. They came to sign the Declaration of Independence. This document told England that America was a free country. The United States of America was born. 11 years later, in 1787, a group of lawmakers met at Independence Hall for a special vote. They voted to approve the Constitution. The Constitution gives all Americans fair laws to live by. Today, we follow these same laws. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776. The 4th of July is America's birthday. Statue of Liberty, New York Harbor. Right in the middle of New York Harbor is the Statue of Liberty. France gave us the statue to celebrate America's centennial, or 100th birthday. The centennial happened in 1876, but the statue was not completed until 1886. The Statue of Liberty is over 151 feet tall. Her mouth is 3 feet across, and her index finger is 8 feet long. If you climb up the 168 steps, you will be inside her crown. You can look out and see New York City and the ships in the harbor. The Statue of Liberty was the first sight that many immigrants saw in America. For them and for us today, her torch in her hand stands for freedom. The statue holds a notebook that reads July 4th, 1776 in Roman numerals. White House, Washington, D.C. The White House is where the President of the United States lives and works. It has rooms for the President's family to live in, offices where people work, and areas for important visitors. The White House also has a bowling alley, a swimming pool, and a movie theater. Over the years, many presidents have lived in the White House. We honor the presidents by allowing them to live in this national treasure. This is the President's office. It is called the Oval Office. Rear view of the White House. The White House has 132 rooms, and 32 of them are bathrooms. Its dinner table can seat 140 people. Plymouth Rock, Plymouth, Massachusetts. In the year 1620, the Pilgrims left England to find a place where they could be free. They set sail on the ship the Mayflower. 2 months later, they came ashore at Plymouth Rock to make their homes in this new land. Today, Plymouth Rock is smaller than it was 400 years ago. Many visitors have broken off pieces of the rock to keep as their own little treasures. Now the government protects Plymouth Rock. The date 1620 is carved into Plymouth Rock. At Plymouth today, people can see how the town looked in 1620. The Mayflower sails to a new land. The first Pilgrims land at Plymouth. Plymouth Rock is protected by this structure. Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, California. The Golden Gate Bridge is one of the world's largest suspension bridges. It is almost 2 miles long. It took 4 years to build between 1933 and 1937. Because of its name, you might think the bridge is gold or yellow, but it is really orange. The Golden Gate Bridge was named after the waterway it crosses over, the Golden Gate Strait. The plans for the bridge were drawn by Joseph B. Stratus. He wanted the workers to be safe while they worked on the bridge, so he invented hard hats for them to wear. Mr. Stratus also put a safety net under the bridge. The net saved the lives of 19 workers who fell from the bridge. The bridge is held up by 80,000 miles of cable. The bridge was built between 1933 and 1937. Virginia City, Montana. During the gold rush, people hurried westward to find gold. They built new towns wherever they found gold. In the 1860s, Virginia City, Montana was home to many gold miners. There were restaurants, food stores, clothing shops, and a blacksmith shop and town newspaper. One day, the gold ran out and everyone left town. Virginia City became a ghost town. Today, the buildings look just as they did in the 1860s. Visitors to Virginia City can see what life was like in the Wild West. People say that if you look under old floorboards, you can still find gold. Gold miners in Virginia City in the 1860s. The first school in Montana and the first U.S. Post Office were both in Virginia City. Mount Rushmore, Black Hills National Forest, South Dakota. Mount Rushmore is more than just a mountain. It is a gigantic sculpture of 4 of the United States presidents. The 4 presidents are George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. The artist Gutzon Borglum and his workers started carving Mount Rushmore in 1927. They hung from swings almost 6,000 feet above ground to do their work. At first they used dynamite and jackhammers to carve away at the rock. Then they used tiny hammers. No wonder Mount Rushmore took 14 years to complete. President Lincoln's mouth is 18 feet wide. Each president's face is 60 feet tall and 20 feet wide. Levi Coffin House, Fountain City, Indiana. Slavery is a part of America's history. Many brave people tried to escape it by going to the states where slavery was not allowed. Some free people helped runaway slaves escape by hiding them in secret places. Then they led the runaway slaves on secret paths to the next person who wanted to help. This was called the Underground Railroad. The helpers were called the railroad conductors. Levi Coffin and his wife, Catherine, were railroad conductors. They hid runaways in a small room in their attic. They closed its tiny door and pushed a bed in front of the door. No one knew the room was there. If people had found out, the Coffins and the runaway slaves would have been punished. Today, the Levi Coffin House looks just like it did in 1839. It reminds us of all the heroes who stood up for freedom. Today, visitors can go into the secret room in the Coffin's attic. The Coffins helped over 2,000 people reach freedom. Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, Florida. The Kennedy Space Center is home to the United States space program known as NASA. Since 1950, 3,000 spacecrafts have been launched from there. In 1969, Apollo 11 blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center and went all the way to the moon. Today, the space shuttles launch and land at the center. The Kennedy Space Center has a museum where visitors can see historic rockets and spacesuits. They can peek in at launch controls or touch moon rock. Visitors can watch spacecraft blast off from 2 giant launch pads. Visitors can also watch as NASA builds an International Space Station where astronauts live in outer space. The new International Space Station will be so large that you won't need a telescope to see it from in space. Poverty Point, Louisiana. This prehistoric landmark is where the Native Americans built a village almost 4,000 years ago. Once as many as 600 Native Americans may have lived at what we call Poverty Point. Today, all that is left of the village are mounds of dirt in a giant half circle. The half circle is almost 4,000 feet across. The largest mound in the shape of a bird is 70 feet tall, 710 feet long, and 640 feet wide. Artifacts found at Poverty Point include beads shaped like birds, arrowheads, tools, and jewelry made with stones that came from far away. These artifacts show that Poverty Point villagers probably liked birds and traded with people from other parts of what would become America. Poverty Point today. Beads. Bird-shaped mound. The flat area in the middle of the half circle might have been used for games, dances, or a big meeting. Arrowheads. Alamo, San Antonio, Texas. The state of Texas was once part of Mexico. In the 1800s, people who lived in Texas wanted to be free from Mexico. In 1836, they fought a terrible battle at a mission called the Alamo. Only 189 Texans were inside the Alamo fighting thousands of soldiers from Mexico. The Texans fought hard, but they lost the Battle of the Alamo. Losing the Battle of the Alamo made the people in Texas want their freedom from Mexico even more. "Remember the Alamo," they would yell to encourage one another. The army from Texas fought, and at last they won. Today, the Alamo reminds people of the importance of freedom. Davy Crockett, an American legend, was one of the soldiers who fought for freedom at the Alamo. Cliff Palace, Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado. Cliff Palace was the home of the prehistoric Native Americans called the Anasazi. The Anasazi built their homes in large caves high up on the sides of stone cliffs. Cliff Palace is the largest of these homes. It was probably more like an apartment building than a palace. At some time between the years of 1200 and 1300, the Anasazi suddenly left Cliff Palace. It is not known why they left. The Anasazi did not write down their history, but they did leave behind pottery, baskets, blankets made of turkey feathers, and jewelry made of silver and turquoise. That makes Cliff Palace a treasure of information about America's past. Anasazi pottery. Cliff Palace has 217 rooms. It was probably the home to 250 people. Hoover Dam, Black Canyon, Nevada. The Colorado River used to flood every few years. Every time it flooded, it ruined crops for miles around. But then the Hoover Dam was built. The dam, named after President Herbert Hoover, and is one of the largest dams in the world. It holds back the waters of the Colorado River. The Hoover Dam is made of giant blocks of concrete. The dam stands 726 feet high, and it contains 840 miles of pipes. When the dam was finished in 1935, the water it blocked formed a lake. The lake is now called Lake Mead. It is over 100 miles long. The Hoover Dam took less than 5 years to build and used enough concrete to make a sidewalk around the earth. Anasazi, the Navajo name for prehistoric people who are believed to be the ancestors of many southwestern Native American tribes. Artifact, an object from the past. Dam, a wall that blocks the flow of water in a river or a stream. Ghost town, a town that no longer has anyone living in it. Immigrant, a person who is moving or has recently moved to a new country. Liberty, freedom. Mission, a kind of church. Prehistoric, from a time before people wrote information about themselves. Ruin, what is left of a place that has been left alone for a very long time. Sculpture, a work of art that has been carved or built. Suspension bridge, a roadway that hangs from cables and towers to allow people or things to cross over something. Underground railroad, a secret system of people and places that helped slaves in America travel from states where slavery was legal to the free states.